If I had to start bodybuilding again tomorrow with no muscles, no experience, no reputation, no trophies, but with the same knowledge that I have now, after more than 40 years in bodybuilding, I will build my body completely differently. Not because fundamentals have changed, they haven't. Muscles still grow today as they used to grow 40 years ago. But what has changed is my understanding. Fortunately, science have changed, and more importantly, after more than 4 decades of training, I have seen thousands of people who made all kind of different mistakes. Some were beginners, some were intermediate, some were national champions, some were genetically gifted, others struggled to gain a single kg of muscle over time. And after coaching all of them, I realized something, that the biggest difference between people who build impressive physiques and those who stayed the same year after year is not genetics, is not testosterone, is not supplements, is not even motivation, is avoiding mistakes that silently destroy your progress. Because bodybuilding is not only about doing the right things, bodybuilding is also about not doing the wrong things. You can train incredibly hard, you can eat perfectly, you can take every supplement on the market, and still, if you do only one mistake, that will limit everything else you do. So today I'm going to share with you 10 things that I would never do if my goal was to build as much muscle as possible. Some of these things may surprise you, some will probably challenge advice you have heard for years, and some may be even a very reason why your muscles stopped growing. But before we begin, I want you to do something. As you watch this video, count how many of these mistakes you are currently making. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 5, and maybe it's all 10. Because if you can eliminate even one major mistake, you may completely change the rate at which your body builds muscle over the next few years. So let us begin with perhaps one of the biggest mistakes that I see in the gyms every day. And this is chasing the heavier weights all the time. Most people in the gyms try to lift heavier all the time. And the question that they ask themselves is always, can I lift more today? And this is clearly the wrong question. The question should rather be, has the weight objectively become too light to provide the best possible stimulus for muscle growth? And these are two completely different questions. The first one is driven by ego, and the second one is simply driven by physiology. Unfortunately, most people train their ego rather than their muscles. So let me give you one example. Imagine you are performing barbell curls. So you are doing 10 quality reps with 25 kgs. Your form is good, the negatives are slow, you never stop during the movement. You feel the muscle, your mind-muscle connection is perfect, everything is happening in the best possible order. Now, the next biceps workout, you come on, again, you use 25 kgs and you perform your barbell curls. And now your attempt is to do 11 or maybe 12 good quality reps with the same weight. So what most people do, if they perform the same exercise with 25 kgs and they do 10 good quality reps, their next biceps workout will immediately be an attempt to lift heavier, because they think, if I've done 10 good reps with 25 kgs, now I'm going to jump on 30 kgs, because most people believe that if they lift heavier, they will build bigger biceps. But this is not the case. Why? Simply because what happens when they jump to heavier weights before managing to do more reps than last time, when they jump to 30 kgs of barbell curls, usually the form goes out of the window. What it means? The weight is too heavy. They have to use other muscles to help lift the weight. Now they are not training the muscle, they are training the exercise. They are not attempting to stress the muscle, they are attempting to move the weight from point A to point B. Because the weight is too heavy and biceps is not ready to lift 30 kgs, they will move their hips, the elbows will start going forward, they will use their shoulders, and they will manage to do a few reps, maybe 5-6 reps like that. Obviously, all that is hard work, is a struggle, but in vain, because this type of approach is simply not bodybuilding, and it will never build bigger muscle. In this scenario, bigger biceps. What most of them believe is actually that they are following perfectly the principle of progressive overload. But this is completely wrong. This is not progressive overload. Progressive overload means increasing the weight when your muscles are ready to increase the weight, not your ego. So when your muscles are strong enough to lift heavier in perfect form, recommended number of reps, as I suggest for upper body muscles, anywhere from 8 to 12, then you can increase the weight. But you can also increase progressive overload by improving your technique, by going slower in your negative, by connecting your mind with your muscles much better. And all this will increase progressive overload, because your muscle doesn't know what progressive overload means. All that muscle understands, that registers, is actually stress on that muscle. So progressive overload is directly related to the stress, to increased stress on particular muscle. And that increased stress can be achieved in many different ways. I have actually dedicated few videos on that subject, so if interested, you can watch them, because there I explain more in detail all about progressive overload. And eventually, when your muscles become strong enough and they grow enough so they can do more reps in perfect form with the weight that you have been using for weeks or maybe months, then you can eventually increase the weight gradually, slowly, maybe for 5%. But only then. Unfortunately, this is not happening, because people are constantly chasing heavier weights, believing that if they lift heavier, they will achieve better results. So this mistake is probably one of the biggest that I see in the gyms, and I would never do it. Now, the second mistake, which actually happens more often than the first mistake, is something that happens to people before they even touch the weights. And this is, they expect results before their body is ready. Most people expect to grow their muscles faster than biology allows. So since we live in the world of instant gratifications, if you order something, for example, we expect that to come today, latest tomorrow. If your internet slows down for 5 seconds, you start panicking because you don't want to wait. But unfortunately, your muscles don't care about your expectations. They operate according to biology. One of the most common questions that people often ask me is, Dr. Nash, how long is it going to take me to see results? People simply don't understand that, body cannot be built overnight. And my answer is usually always the same. I always say it depends. It depends on so many different factors. First of all, it depends on your genetics. Then it depends on your nutrition. Then depends on your training. Then depends on your consistency. Then depends on your discipline. Depends on so many different factors which are directly involved in that physiology of muscle growth. So building muscle is not an event, is a biological adaptation. And every workout that you do, every set is simply a signal. So every meal provides the building blocks. Every good night's sleep will allow the body to recover and also to build new tissue. So none of these things works in isolation. It's very complex, and obviously it takes time for adaptation to take place. So one cannot expect things to happen overnight. And this is one of the most common issues, problems that most people experience. I often say to my clients, the body is like building a house. You cannot expect to build a house in a few days. You need to get preparations. The architect needs to draw the plans, and then you have engineers, and then you have local authorities to give you all kind of permissions, and then you have materials arriving. Then you need to organize managers and then workers, and the work slowly starts by building the foundation. And it takes time and inspections and this and that, and it takes months to build a house. So the body is exactly the same. In some cases, it takes years. I've seen people progressing in 4 to 6 months, changing beyond recognition. I had clients like that. But I also had people who couldn't change in 4 to 6 months. They improved, but they didn't change dramatically. So some people require longer. But the ones who were consistent, they changed in a year or two. They really, really changed beyond recognition. But obviously, what mattered is that complexity of different factors, and most importantly, consistency. Consistency and also discipline. Those two things are not separated. So you need to be patient. And because people are not patient, what do? They start changing training programs. If they don't change in 2-3 weeks, they will move to different program. They see something on Instagram or on YouTube. Oh, I'm going to start doing this because the previous one didn't give me any results. Then in 3 weeks, 4 weeks time, they will change it again. So they will spend 4 weeks using barbells. Then next 6 weeks using dumbbells. Then somebody's going to come and say, no, this exercise is not good. You need to start using machines. Then another guru will come out and say, no, cables are much better. So if you revert to cables, you may expect. So they keep changing all the time, simply not allowing the body to adapt to that correct progressive overload, which stimulate muscles and stimulate growth. And this is absolute disaster. Others start taking all kind of supplements. Some people start taking steroids. I've seen countless number of people who were taking lots of steroids because they were not patient, they didn't do right things, they were doing all kind of mistakes. And after 2-3 years of taking steroids, they didn't change at all. If you see them in the gym, you would say, these guys are taking steroids? No way. Well, unfortunately, most people that I see in the gyms who are taking steroids don't look good at all. And you would never imagine they're taking steroids. On the other side, there are people who are doing things right, as many of my clients do, and my son also, and they're absolutely 100% natural, and they look like on steroids. I have those comments all the time. Everybody says, oh, your son is on something. No, he's not on anything. But I was taking steroids and never looked like that. Of course you didn't look like that, because you did wrong things. And this is why I'm doing this video, in order to help you to avoid doing mistakes that can actually postpone and slow down your progress. So being patient is extremely important. Body doesn't change overnight. It may take months, it may take years, but your consistency at avoiding mistakes will definitely pay off. Now, the next mistake is something that has become very popular in recent years. I also suffer from this mistake. I did it, but I would never do it again. And this is doing every set to failure. So going to failure has become very attractive since that training become advocated by Mike Menzer, who was a professional bodybuilder, very successful. He won Mr. Universe title in Acapulco in 1978. He was in amazing shape. And obviously he wanted to make some money out of bodybuilding. He never won Mr. Olympia. So he wasn't financially successful when it comes to bodybuilding and professional bodybuilding. But he was very intelligent, and he actually invented a system that promised everything for almost nothing. So basically, what do? You train 2-3 times per week, maybe 4 times per week. You do 1 set per exercise, but all-out set to failure until you drop dead, obviously. He would say, imagine if you do 8 reps and you drop the weights and you think you went all out, you went to failure. But what would happen if somebody comes with a gun and says to you, do another 3 reps, and you would do it? So this was his explanation of going to failure. So if you don't do that, apparently, according to him, you would never be able to build serious muscles. But this was completely wrong. It never worked, and it will never work. I tried it myself. I wasted time. I believe in that myth of heavy duty. And thankfully, because I met real bodybuilders who taught me how to do things, I changed that completely. I went on the other side. I was doing many more sets, higher number of reps. I didn't go to failure in every set. Now I don't even go to failure at all. And I advocate not going to failure, but stay shy of failure in every set, maybe 1 or 2 reps before failure, because even sets that you stay away from failure 1 or 2 reps, we are extremely effective. They're even more effective than going to failure. Why? Because simply they will allow you to do more sets. By doing more sets like that, you will accumulate more quality reps. And on the end of your session, your muscles will be fully stimulated. If you do every set to failure, you will simply shock your central nervous system. Every set after set to failure will be junk volume because you won't be able to focus, to concentrate. There will be no mind-muscle connection there. You will be burning your central nervous system. You're going to pump cortisol like crazy. And this training to failure is the last thing that your body is created to perform in order to build muscle. The body needs to be happy in order to build muscle, not beaten to death. And you beat your body to death and your muscles, in your central nervous system, the whole physiology by going to failure. So this is another massive mistake that so many people are suffering from today, simply believing in myth of heavy duty. Even if your training is excellent, there is another mistake that can completely undermine your progress. And this is diet mistake based on a belief that your diet should be based mainly on carbohydrates. This is one of the biggest changes that I actually made over years concerning nutrition. So when I started bodybuilding, as some of you know who watch my videos from before, I followed again Mike Mentzer's principles, not just in training heavy duty, but also in nutrition. So I followed his advice that 70% of your diet should be based on carbohydrates, 20% on protein, and 10% of fat. So I did that. I had pasta, rice, bread, cereals for breakfast, potatoes, and I had some protein as well, and a very little bit of fat. But that diet, as he explained, which was supposed to give you a lot of glycogen, because he said muscle is not built only of protein, it's also built of glycogen, so you need more glycogen. And if you want more glycogen, you need to eat more carbohydrates, which is absolute nonsense, physiological fallacy. So I followed that, and I ended up being fat. Now, carbohydrates, if you eat them, you will have to be very careful. You will have to calculate every single calorie that you put in your mouth. Benefit of high protein, low carb diet, as I explained in my book, High Protein, Low Carb Diet, are actually that you will flood your body and your muscles with amino acids, which are essential for building muscles. These are building blocks of muscle fibers. These are simply like bricks building the house. So if you don't have amino acids in huge amount, you will never be able to build muscle. No bodybuilder has built any muscle without eating high amount of protein, meaning anywhere from 2 to 3 grams, even more, up to 6 grams of protein per kg of body weight. So I personally advise anywhere from 2 to 3 grams, sometimes 4, depending on an individual, but the protein should be the paramount. It should be the basis, the essence of your diet. Carbohydrates are not necessary, therefore they don't have to be present in your diet. I didn't eat any carbs in last, I don't know, probably 10 years. Occasionally I may have here and there something, but it's occasionally. But my main macronutrients in my diet are actually protein and fat. And I'm in shape all the time. I've been in shape, the same shape for decades now. And as you can see on these images, which are done literally a few days ago, where I was on my holiday, you see what kind of shape I generate and I maintain all the time without any problem. Why? Because of my diet. Diet is absolutely critical when it comes to staying in shape. I don't do any cardio, as you probably know from my previous videos. I train 4 to 5 times a week. I do high volume training, and this is all that I do. And I achieve condition, as you can see in the images. So where is the secret there? Well, secret is in the diet. So I would never again base my diet around carbohydrates. If I have to start tomorrow, I would be eating 2 to 3 meals, maybe 4 to maybe for some people protein shake depending on the day, depending on the training, how you feel. As you know, I don't like to give rigid rules, and I never did. I always say that you have to experiment by generally 2 to 3 meals, maybe extra protein shake in some days. This is all that you need. Every meal should be made of protein, and half the amount in grams of the daily protein intake should be in fat. So if you basically eat 300 grams of protein a day, you should be having around 150 grams of fat. So some people less, some people more, depending on individuals, metabolism, depending on training systems, training frequency, volume, etc. This is the guidance that I say to most of my clients and all of you in my videos, to base your diet mainly on protein. So the question should never be how much carbohydrates should I eat today. The question is how much protein do I have today? How much protein do I need? Everything else comes after. Fat comes after protein, and then carbohydrates if necessary. But in most cases, for most people, carbohydrates are not necessary. Some people may take them, some people may get away with certain amount of carbohydrates, but this is very individual, and these people who can get away with eating carbohydrates are not majority, they are minority. So for majority of people, high protein, low carb diet, medium fat is the best approach, without doubt. Simply proven in thousands of cases in last 40 plus years of my bodybuilding coaching. Now there is another problem that may undermine your progress, and this is changing your exercises every few weeks. People do these things simply because they get confused, they use wrong techniques, they don't have a properly structured training system, and within 4 to 6 weeks, for example, they don't see any results, which is normal. If your training system is not right, if the selection of exercises is not right, if you don't do enough sets, if you don't do enough reps, if you go to failure, if you rest too long, if you eat carbohydrates too much, you are not going to change. So the first thing that people do is, exercises are not good, so I'm going to change them. And then they, depending on which hook they get hooked, either from Instagram, on TikTok, or other social media, on YouTube as well, where there's a lot of so-called experts which will tell you all kind of revolutionary exercises that will change your body in no time. And people keep bouncing from one side to another like a pinball. That simply doesn't work, because I have published many videos on most effective exercises for major muscle groups. And these exercises that I advise usually basic exercises. There are also some isolating exercises that I suggest. And once your workout is structured properly and the selection of exercises is perfect, there is nothing to change. You can train like that for the rest of your life. I do change occasionally. If I have a niggle or something or small injury, instead of barbell, I would use dumbbells, but the exercise will still be the same. Or instead of dumbbells, I may use hammer strength machine or similar, but the exercise still remains the same. The main biomechanics is still there. Now, what happens today, again, because of different influences from everywhere, people keep changing. They change everything. I see people in the gym from barbells to go on the machines. They completely abandon barbells and dumbbells. Then after that, you see some end up with some cables, some fancy exercises, just believing that by changing exercises, they will improve their situation. They will start growing muscles. But you probably heard about that nonsense again, that it's very important to confuse your muscle. Well, you know what? Regardless of who said that, this is something in philosophy called contradictio in adjecto, meaning you're talking basically nonsense, right? Why is that? Simply because the muscle cannot get confused. Muscle hasn't got a mind. You can get confused. People can get confused, not knowing what to do, where to go, so they're confused. But muscle, they cannot get confused. How can muscle possibly get confused? What is the organ that confuses the muscle? It hasn't got that organ. So you cannot confuse the muscle. If you want to develop that muscle, if you want to revive growth or maybe change wrong system into something better, there is only one factor that matters, and this is mechanical tension. Again, I explained that in many videos, so feel free, check my old videos and you will come across mechanical tension, which I explain in detail. So unless you perform exercise to the point that you cause high mechanical tension, your muscles will not grow, regardless of what exercise you do. So keep changing exercises. You will never stimulate more growth, and it will never get you of that cul-de-sac. So far, I've talked to you about training and nutrition and the problems that actually happen within training and nutrition field. But there is again another problem which will undermine everything else, and this is recovery. Many bodybuilders train hard, eat correct, do everything right, but they still hit the wall. And the problem is not training, is not nutrition, is simply they don't recover enough. So your body simply needs recovery. Recovery is very complex area, and obviously relates directly to your training frequency. Meaning, if you train every muscle twice per week or 3 times per week, it's going to be very difficult for your connective tissues, for your joints, and especially for your central nervous system and localized neural pathways to recover. If you don't eat enough protein or enough food in general, you will also not be able to recover, because simply the body will never have enough essential nutrients to rebuild, to recover itself. Now, another problem is sleep. Many people don't sleep enough. And all these things together relate directly to recovery. So you need to understand that if your body doesn't recover systemically, people, when they talk about recovery, they only talk about muscular recovery. Muscles recover quickly. This is never a problem of recovering a muscle. Muscle can be trained every 2-3 days. It's not a problem. But there are other tissues, there are other systems in the body, central nervous system, or your comprehensive, the whole recovery of the whole body, whole system, which is called systemic recovery. That is the problem. So if you train every muscle 2-3 times per week, it's very difficult to recover. You should train every muscle once per week. Again, I have done the video on that subject that you can watch and see why I advise every muscle group to train only once per week. Either you are natural or you are enhanced, doesn't really matter. Natural or enhanced, you still have central nervous system, CNS. This is where a lot of people come back to me and say, oh, but this is only for people who are enhanced. Well, not necessarily, because there are tissues and organs and central nervous system. They have nothing to do with steroids or being natural. So you should just forget about this. Don't compare and try to find excuses, because recovery is much more complex and relates absolutely the same to enhanced and natural bodybuilders. So far, the mistakes that we have discussed have been physical. Now there is another one, which is the mistake relating directly to your mind, because it starts in the mind and it can silently limit a lot of your progress. That mistake is that you should never compare your progress to someone else's progress. This happens very often. Most of us, especially young people, they are completely bombarded with all kind of information and all kind of influences on social media, movies, advertising. Influences coming from everywhere. You see on Instagram, for example, people posting their images. On YouTube, you see professional bodybuilders, you see more advanced bodybuilders, you see some natural bodybuilders who look amazing. You're constantly challenged to compare yourself with others. Now, comparing yourself with others does not have to be always detrimental. Sometimes can be even good. But as long as you use others' successes as motivational force. But what happens? You see a professional bodybuilder who is telling you what to do, and he looks amazing, and he's taking steroids, but you don't look like that. And then you start feeling inferior. You start thinking, oh, I will never be like this guy, because this guy, first of all, has amazing genetics. Second, he probably doesn't do anything. He's just doing bodybuilding, and I'm working from 9 till 5. Then you may say, oh, he's taking steroids. I don't take steroids. So maybe I should change the sport. Maybe I should go jogging or playing golf or something, because this is not going to happen, because these people are very different. So comparing your progress with progress of others is not the best thing that you can do, especially if you don't use it as motivation, but rather as something that you will never achieve. So yes, it's good to listen to others, look how they look, see what they say, maybe listen to some advice, be very careful. Obviously, this is the challenge, this is the big, is absolute lottery. As I always said in my lectures, it's not only about reading, it's about reading right material. Because if you read something which is going to deceive you, you're wasting your time. You're actually doing a very bad thing to yourself. So you have to be very selective. Who are you using? Where are you getting your information from? Who is your advisor? Who becomes your coach in a way? And this is difficult. I have to say that. I look around, I see countless number of personal trainers, coaches on YouTube, the countless numbers of influencers who are talking all kind of stuff. Most of it is not right, and still people get deceived. They follow, and then eventually they either stop training or they get injured. And the last thing obviously you want to do is to compare yourself to somebody else and conclude that you will never get there simply because you are not like these people. They're kind of special specimen, but they're not. The only progress that matters is actually progress between you yesterday and you today. I advise my clients and everybody who is watching this video to do the regular photos of yourself. Do them every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. Always do your photos at the same place. Let's say Sunday morning in your bedroom or in your bathroom, wherever. Use the same lighting, and then compare those photos over time. So if in 3, 4, 6 months, in a year, you look very different than you have looked 6 months ago or a year ago, you are doing a fantastic job. You are progressing. You are moving forward. It doesn't matter how fast you go, as long as you're moving forward. This is the point. So the only person actually that matters is you. It's not that person on Instagram. It's not me. It's not anybody else. I always say to people, you have to experiment. You have to get my advice, but try and see if it works. Twist it a little bit. I'm giving guidance. I'm not giving recipes. Because on the end of the day, you are the owner of your life. You are that guy who sits in the driving seat and drives the car. I'm not driving the car. I may suggest to you which way to go to get in the safest possible way and in the shortest possible time from London to Manchester, but I can't tell you how fast to drive. I can't tell you which car to drive. I can't tell you how to drive. So all these things you have to try, and eventually you find the best possible solution. Advice that I give again is a guidance, is not a recipe. So do not compare and do not despair if people that you're looking at, maybe your idols, somebody that you will never become. You may never be Mr. Olympia, so who cares? You want to be better. You want to be better tomorrow than today. And this is the only thing that matters. I like to finish most of my philosophical lectures. I finish with a single sentence: never live the same day twice. Meaning, don't be the same as you were yesterday, because you just simply wasted the day. Now, what happens with a lot of people, they do not progress in different fields of life for years, some of them for decades. So when they look back, they're the same people who were 10 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, just older, because nothing has changed. They didn't move. They were moving horizontally, but never vertically. So you want to move vertically. So don't worry about other people, how fast they jump up, left or right, doesn't matter. You follow your progress, do your photos, and you will see results. The only results that matters and the only changes that matters are actually your changes. Another psychological mistake that people often make is also related to training. But it's psychological. Why is psychological? Because in that established belief that more is always better. So more money is better, more cars is better, more properties is always better. But that doesn't mean that more sets are better. But you may say, Dr. Nash, you are the one who advocates a high number of sets, and now you are saying that more is not better. So how that works? Well, exactly, this is what I'm saying. More is not better, because when I say that you should perform 20 to 30 sets for major muscle groups, that doesn't mean that those are arbitrary sets, that you should do 20 to 30 because I said 20. There's something magical about the number. Nothing is magical about the number. Why do I say 20 to 30 sets? Because when I, or my clients or anybody else, whoever follows my advice, when I put all these principles of training technique, rest between the sets, not going to failure, you will see that you will end up doing every exercise in 4, 5, 6 sets. So if you do 5 exercises, for example, for back, as I've done today, there is no way that you can do 10 sets per exercise if you follow the principles that I advise. So the first exercise, let's say pull down, 5, 6 sets. Then the second bent over row, maybe 4, 5 sets. Then the third close grip pull down, maybe 4, 5. Because I can't do more, and you will not do more if you follow my principles. And you will end up doing anywhere from 20 to 30 sets for back if you do, for example, 5 movements. So if you do 4 sets per exercise, 4 or 5, I never say you have to do 4 or you have to do 5. You do as many as you can. Follow the principles. This is the main thing. If you do 4, for example, you will end up doing 20 sets. If some of your exercises end up being 5 or 6 sets, you will do 24, 25 sets. Sometimes you may go higher if you're more advanced. There is not a problem. 30 sets is never been a problem for me doing back, for example. But the problem is when people just want to do more for the sake of doing more. So they heard Serge Nubre is doing 40 sets per chest, because I did the video on that, and they want to do 40 sets, and they will do all kind of sets. Those sets are not going to be close to failure. They're going to be some light sets, warm-up sets. So if every set is not close to failure, 1 rep, 2 reps shy of failure, you can do 100 sets. But this is exactly the point. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about high-quality sets which are done according to the principles that I advocate. If you follow the principles, you will end up successfully doing 20 to 30 sets for major muscle groups. If you are the one of those people who just want to do sets for the sake of, I'm going to do 50 sets today for chest, well, you can do 60. Now they are arbitrary. There is nothing in principle there. You're just chasing the number of sets for whatever reason. So more sets is not like more money. More money may be better, but more sets is not better. So you cannot just do more sets for the sake of doing more, because those sets are not going to be productive sets. And this is something that often happens. So you have to be careful about not just pumping the numbers because they don't matter, but doing correctly every single set in perfect form. Rest enough between the sets, necessary minimum, never too long. Because if you rest too long, you can spend in the gym 2-3 hours and you can do 100 sets, but that workout is going to be a waste of time. So overdoing the sets just for the sake of numbers is wrong, and is also a mistake that often happens. Another mistake, which is also psychological, but is related to nutrition in a way, is that obsession with a pill or a capsule. And you're guessing what I'm talking about, supplements. So many times I had people who come to me for a consultation before we start doing personal training, and they would come and they would say, oh, Dr. Nash, let me show you something. They're completely out of shape, a lot of body fat, no muscles whatsoever, very unfit. But then they bring the whole bag of some supplements, and they open the bag and start pulling out supplements. I'm using cod liver oil, and I'm using creatine, and a glutamine, and a BCAA, and do essential amino acids, and I do this special pre-workout before every day, and they take magnesium at nighttime, and I also take zinc and D3 and K2, and they learn all about, they even take some supplements that I don't know, what they are. I never heard about them. 20, 30 different bottles. And I'm looking at them and thinking, oh my God, what is this? And that belief that the pill, that the tablet is going to make the difference in your progress in muscle growth and fat loss is absolute lie. It's impossible. I remember when I competed in 90s and people that I met, they didn't even have any supplements. They rely on diet, hard workout, and they ended up shredded to the bone. They were exceptionally built physiques. Just imagine Arnold, for example, or Serge Nubre. What kind of supplements did they have? Yes, they took steroids, but what about supplements? Arnold didn't have creatine, didn't have amino acids, didn't have anything, didn't have pre-workouts. He didn't know what K2 is, that K2 has to go with D3 because that shifts calcium into bones, etc., and similar advances that we have now. But yes, supplements can be taken. Some of them should be taken. I'm taking supplements. I've done the video on that as well. There are a few supplements that everybody should take, but you should never believe that the supplements are going to be a decisive factor in your progress. That supplements will help you build muscle and burn body fat. As you know, my channel is all about building muscle and burning fat. I'm not interested in anything else. And I can tell you, if you eat a proper diet, if you eat enough eggs, enough liver, if you eat meat, fish, chicken, dairy for some people, you may not need any supplements. Right? Because everything that is supplemental will be in that food. So some people who are not as strict, who are not eating enough of all these essential foods that I've just mentioned, they may benefit from some kind of supplements. But never believe that supplements will help you build bigger muscles and burn more body fat. So we have reached to the final mistake now. And in my opinion, this is a mistake that a lot of people actually suffer from. I've seen it myself, and I'm talking about quitting too soon. A lot of people start training, expect results, as I mentioned earlier on, very quickly. They think that if they start training and if they go 5 times per week and everything will change in 4 or 5 weeks, they will look different. But they don't. And they start thinking, oh, maybe my progress is slow, I'm not building muscles, maybe my genetics is not right, maybe the program that my online coach gave me doesn't work for me, or maybe just the whole story of bodybuilding is simply just not for me because I'm not really built like these other guys, the genetic freaks and all these big people in the gym. I will never be like that. So you know what? I probably am gonna quit this and I'm gonna do something else. And this is happening. So I don't know if you have experienced this mistake, but if you did, listen to this advice now. Building your body takes years. You are not going to change in weeks or months. Some people who are extremely disciplined, people who are really passionate about training, who have great genetics, they can change in 4, 5, 6 months, even in a year. They will change, and they will change considerably. But that doesn't mean that everybody will change. Most people change in years. Yes, I've seen people changing in 4, 6 months, but also I had clients who changed in 2, 3 years, but they really, really changed. So is relative. And quitting too soon is not a good thing, because when you think that bodybuilding is not really for you, you are going to stop doing something that it's most beneficial for you, not just for looking good, for having big muscles, but also physiologically, simply without comparison. Bodybuilding is the best possible physical activity that everybody can do. Everybody can do bodybuilding. Men, women, young, middle-aged, elderly, everybody can do bodybuilding. Obviously, if they do it correctly, if they have proper training system, if they do every exercise in perfect form, as this is why I actually published my bodybuilding blueprint course, which is made of 8 videos in which I personally perform and explain the most effective exercises for all muscle groups. So I've done that in order to help people understand how to train in perfect form. And if you do all that, you will be benefiting for the rest of your life, because every workout that you do now is investment in your future. Every workout will develop more muscle fibers, bigger muscle fibers, will strengthen your connective tissues, your joints, your bones. You want to have strong muscles and strong bones for the rest of your life, not only when you're 20, 30, but also when you're 60, 70, 80. And nothing will give you all these enormous benefits like bodybuilding. So quitting is really the worst thing that one can do, simply because finding excuses, not being patient enough, not understanding the essence of this game, not understanding all the benefits that bodybuilding offers, and simply quitting will probably be the worst mistake they will ever do. So this would be the 10 things that I would never do if I start training from the beginning. As you have noticed something, I didn't talk about some special exercises. I didn't talk about special supplement or magic approach. Instead, everything that I just said to you is basically simple. I'm talking about simple principles. So if you stop making this mistake that will prevent your body to progress, you will already be doing great. You see, your body is an incredibly intelligent biological machine. The body knows how to build muscle. It's been doing that for hundreds of thousands of years. It does not need some revolutionary training technique or revolutionary supplement. It does not need all this advice from social media. It simply needs right stimulus, the right nutrition and recovery. And above all, your body needs enough time to adapt and then build more muscle tissue. So after more than 4 decades in bodybuilding, I came to the conclusion that actually building the great physique is simple. Yes, simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. Simple means, first of all, that principles rarely change. Also, it means that you need to train with excellent technique. You need to challenge your muscles progressively. You need to eat high quality protein. You need to recover properly, as I mentioned. You need to remain patient, and you need to repeat all these things day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, because great physiques are not built in one workout, in 1 month. Great physiques have been built over years, over decades. And if you remember only one thing from this video, then let it be this. Your body never rewards impatience. It rewards consistency. It rewards every workout you complete, every healthy meal that you eat, every good night's sleep, every time you choose discipline instead of excuse. And never look for shortcuts. Don't chase new trends, because there's so many of them. We're bombarded with all these new trends all the time. You need to master the fundamentals, because all these great physiques are simply built on fundamentals, nothing else. And this is how you should build yours. So after more than 40 years in bodybuilding, competing myself 46 times, winning 17 titles, coaching over 3,500 clients and helping them to get in the best shape of their lives, I have published for you 14 ebooks which are fully loaded with detailed explanation of everything that you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. I have also published for you Bodybuilding Blueprint course, in which I personally demonstrate and explain the most effective exercises for major muscle groups. So if you want to expand your knowledge and stop making mistakes in the gym, stop wasting your time, click on the link in the comments and you can access my ebooks and my Bodybuilding Blueprint course. Also, I would like to remind you that on the 1st of September, we are starting the new 90 days transformation challenge, and applications are open now. So if you want to join, follow the link in the comments and you can transform your body in 90 days like never before. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, also send me your comments, and I will see you in the next video.